Hey guys, it's Scott here from MoneyNerd, and today I'm diving into some of the major issues with debt management plans and why, depending on your situation, you might want to avoid them. By now you should know this channel. I'm not here to tell you what you should and shouldn't do. Debt management plans are like any other debt solution. They have their pros and their cons. Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're bad. It's all about you and your individual situation. So even though I'm looking at specifically the problems with debt management plans today, that doesn't mean that it's all bad. I highly suggest you look at some of my other debt management plan videos where I take a deeper dive into looking at some of the good aspects. But with all of that out of the way, let's jump in. The first reason you might want to avoid a debt management plan is if you have lots and lots of creditors and lots of different types of debt. And what do I mean by that? Well, like other debt solutions, a debt management plan allows you to pay one monthly fee that then gets distributed amongst each of your creditors. But unlike some solutions, a debt management plan doesn't cover every type of debt, and it might be difficult to get your creditors to agree to it. We won't go into loads of details here because I've mentioned it in other videos, but a debt management plan only covers debts like non-priority debts. So that's things like credit cards and payday loans. They don't cover priority debts like council tax and your mortgage. That means if you have lots of both types, you'll still have to work out your approach with your priority debts regarding having a debt management plan. On top of that, unlike other debt solutions, your creditors each get to decide whether they want to be part of your debt management plan or not. So you might end up with a situation where some creditors agree and other creditors disagree. Again, you'll have to work out how you cover the ones that they don't agree to separately. And all of this means that it can get quite messy. Here's an example. Imagine if I have 7 creditors, 2 of those are priority debts. Let's say they're council tax and my gas bill. They won't be covered by my debt management plan, so we have to put those to one side. So now I'm left with 5 creditors that are non-priority debts that might accept my debt management plan. So I go away and I work out my budget and put together a debt management plan proposal ready to present it to the 5 non-priority creditors. Sadly, sometimes not all creditors accept them. So in this case, let's say only 3 of them end up accepting it. That means I've got 2 left over who aren't part of the debt management plan. In this example, I had 7 debts. Only 3 were actually covered by the debt management plan. The other 4 would have to be dealt with separately. That's not much easier than if I'd not used a debt management plan in the first place. Of course, all of this is hypothetical. If you find out that all your creditors agree, then it can be more simple. And certainly if you have no priority debts, then it can be a lot more simple. But it's not all guaranteed. Other solutions like an IVA, for example, only require the majority of your creditors to agree. So the likelihood of success and all of those people being wrapped up in your debt solution will be much higher. With an IVA, if the majority agree, then the rest are forced to come on board anyway. Another reason you might not want to use a debt management plan is if you know your situation is unlikely to improve anytime soon. If you have quite a lot of debt to pay back and you know in reality your personal situation is not going to change, then it's worth doing some calculations to work out whether a debt management plan is actually a good idea. Another example might help. Let's say we've got 2 people, we've got Harry and Sally, both of which are in debt, but they're in very different situations. Let's start with Harry. Harry lost his job recently and he's paying back a monthly fee for his car, which ends in 3 months. On top of that, he's got £10,000 worth of debt. Harry can look at his situation and know in 3 months that his car payments are going to end, and he'll know that if he works really hard at getting a job, he'll be able to get some income. So his situation is likely to be far different in 3 to 6 months compared to where he is now. For Harry, a debt management plan might work really well. He can come up with a plan that pays back a token amount to his creditors over a short period of time. The regulators actually suggest that lenders should accept a token payment. This can be as low as £1, by the way, so as long as it's not for the long term. So Harry can explain his situations to the creditors, set up short-term debt management plans that tides him over until his situation improves. Now let's look at Sally. She's also got £10,000 worth of debt, but Sally knows for the next few years her income won't increase and her situation is unlikely to improve. For Sally, a short-term debt management plan with those token payments is unlikely to be an option. She'd have to make use of a longer-term debt management plan. Sadly, because of the really low payments that she's going to make each month, her plan is going to be incredibly long, stretching to almost 10 years. And sometimes her monthly repayments don't even cover the interest on her loans, so her debt could actually increase over the course of the debt management plan. In this scenario, Sally should take a serious look at other types of debt solutions, even if that means taking a bigger hit on her credit score and losing some of her assets. I'm sure now you can see how your own situation is the most important thing to consider when trying to work your way out of debt. The third reason that you may not want a debt management plan is to do with interest and charges. Stay with the video. I know interest rates can be boring, but it's a really important point and I'll keep it simple. If you're partway through setting up a debt management plan, you need to gauge whether your creditors are likely to freeze your interest and charges or not. To be clear, they're under no legal obligation to stop interest, but many do. So you need to find out whether your creditors will stop your interest or not. The fine print can make the difference between actually paying back your debt or just watching your debt go up every month. You should do everything you can to work out what your creditors are likely to do with your interest before you start the debt management plan. The next reason is probably the most important, at least in my opinion, and I've already hinted at it a little bit. If you want a fast solution to your debts, then a debt management plan is probably not right for you. Now, I need to caveat this by reminding you of Harry in my example earlier. He uses a short-term debt management plan to tide his creditors over until his situation has changed. That's not what I'm talking about here. Harry has a short-term debt management plan, but at the end of the day, he still has debts to pay, and his plans didn't reduce how much he owed. If you're looking to be rid of your debt quickly and start with a clean slate as soon as possible, then a debt management plan probably isn't for you. That's because a debt management plan is simply a way to lower your repayments to something more affordable. So if you have £10,000 worth of debt and you can only afford to pay back £100 a month, you'll be in a debt management plan for over 8 years. And that's assuming no interests are added and you're able to make every single payment. If you want a fast solution that cuts down the total amount that you actually pay back, then you might want to look into another solution like an IVA, a debt relief order, or even bankruptcy. Under some other debt solutions, you're actually able to cut down how much you pay back. As a quick example, most IVAs last 5 or 6 years, and if you don't manage to pay back all of your debts in that time, then the remainder of the debts are written off. So you'll have a totally fresh start. A debt management plan will continue until you've either completely paid off the debt or until you've decided to find another way to pay. As with everything, whether it's a debt management plan or another debt solution, there's always pros and cons that you need to weigh up. Today I haven't had much time to cover the specific times a debt management plan is the right solution for you, so I've done a dedicated video outlining some of my favourite reasons to get a debt management plan here, and I'll link in the description. Thanks for watching, and if you found it useful, don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.